DILLIAN the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Right, just been watching a couple of interviews with Eddie Hearn, and good news for everybody who wants to see Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. I was watching the Seconds Out with Radio Raheem and IFL, and Eddie Hearn said that there has to be the undisputed fight between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder if, of course, Anthony Joshua was to get past Joseph Parker at the end of the month in a week and a half's time, right? There's a small window where they have to do undisputed before mandatories, all this kind of stuff, kind of like starts getting in the way, and they have up until February, latest, to get the fight done. So this is the deadline. It could be that he fights him next, could be that he fights him after. So really, that's good news, right? Everybody's getting what they want, undisputed fight. Now, I know that's probably going to be some people unhappy. We want official confirmation that it's definitely 100% happening next, rah-de-rah-de-rah. Okay, but really, so what you're asking is Joshua to do his unification against Vladimir Klitschko, do his mandatory, unify again, and then unify again. That's what you're asking him to do. Do you not see that as being a bit unfair? Has anybody in the history of the heavyweight division done this before to become undisputed? Maybe they have, I don't know, I'm not a historian. So maybe they have, but I'm pretty sure they haven't. So in some ways, yeah, that will be history in the making, if you like, that he can go and collect one belt after the other in such a short time. That's fantastic. But if he's saying that they have until February because they're going to start calling the mandatories for, you know, WBC and the WBA with Povetkin and all this kind of stuff, then that's good news, right? So at least we know the deadline, if you like. So he's not saying it's not going to happen next. He's saying that if it doesn't happen next, it will happen the one after. So you're only one fight away, in theory, right? So that's all good news. But again, everything is dependent on whether or not he beats Parker. I mean, for all we know, it could be a rematch and all this kind of stuff. And maybe Parker will beat Joshua in the rematch too. We don't know, okay? There's so many scenarios. But here's a little thing that I want to put out to you all. So if there's like a little window, now, okay, we could say even with that window, doesn't really matter if Povetkin is called, all this kind of thing, because usually a unification takes precedence, right? Especially when it's undisputed. Okay, a sanctioning body could say no. I mean, they don't have to accept it. It's not the law to accept it. And that is a myth that people seem to think that it does trump mandatories or this kind of thing. It can trump mandatories, and they usually do allow it. But now they probably would. So if they were to do it till March or whenever, instead of a mandatory, the chances are the sanctioning body will probably say yes. Okay, unless of course it's the IBF. We know the IBF don't do any of that kind of stuff. They're very, very strict across all the weight divisions, of course. But anyway, with that aside, let's just go by what Eddie Hearn says, February latest. So you're talking 11 months. And in that time, Joshua could have one fight, Wilder could have one fight, and then they meet up at the end, right? So at least now we know we're only a maximum 11 months away from undisputed, right? So I was thinking about this, like rather than we all push for Joshua to face Wilder next, while it would be cool, of course it would, but I was thinking this, and it's just an idea I'm putting out there. How about we all start pushing Deontay Wilder to fight DILLIAN WHYTE next? Now hear me out. The reason for this is quite simple. Of course, DILLIAN WHYTE needs to get past Lucas Brown at the weekend. No, again, no guarantees, right? But hopefully he does. And in the audience, in attendance, will be Mauricio Suleiman, the WBC president. And he's going to be sat with Eddie Hearn watching the fight. And Eddie Hearn has already said he's going to try and get him to make this, should DILLIAN win, to make him the official mandatory. And then call the mandatory shot next. So therefore, Deontay Wilder has no choice but to fight DILLIAN WHYTE. And whether you like this fight or whether you don't, just think about it this way. Okay, number one, DILLIAN WHYTE beats Deontay Wilder. We then get a rematch between Joshua and DILLIAN WHYTE, which us in the UK would love to see, to rivals whose rivalry has gone back to the amateurs coming together again for Undisputed. Two British champions coming together for Undisputed. Okay, that's one. The other one is Deontay Wilder beats him. That then moves Wilder's stock up a little bit, if you like, on the British scene, and makes the Joshua fight even bigger. So this is why I'm saying that I think that we should not really jump in bed with the idea of Joshua should fight Wilder next, no matter what. He should fight Deontay Wilder next. We're not going to wait until February. We want it next. Joshua said he's going to come out and fight in around about September time next. Make sure that is going to be Deontay Wilder. So, as I said, Anthony Joshua did unification against Vladimir Klitschko in his 19th fight. In his 20th, he did his mandatory. 21st, unified again to get 3 belts. Then 22nd fight, Undisputed. History, yes, but I think it's a little bit unfair in some ways to kind of ask for it. Now, in the meantime, Joshua, if of course Eddie Hearn can work his magic, fingers crossed he does, that Mauricio Suleiman will agree to make Dillian White the official mandatory and then call the mandatory for the summertime or whatever, then they could, in theory, have an epic night of boxing for UK and boxing fans. They could even do it in New York or wherever, somewhere in America, where you have Deontay Wilder versus Jarrell Miller and Dillian White against Deontay Wilder. The winner of these two fights face off at the end, come over to London for a huge undisputed fight. Well, I say come over because who knows, maybe Deontay Wilder wins and maybe Jarrell Miller wins, right? Then all that's straight out the window. Okay, so yeah. Or they could do it in the UK. Have Anthony Joshua face his mandatory now, which would be Povetkin, providing he gets past David Price, which he probably will be, which is on the Joshua Parker undercard, of course. But then, of course, have Joshua and Povetkin next. Get his mandatory out of the way, so we don't have to worry about no other deadline, because Povetkin's in the way for the WBA and WBO, right? So that wouldn't be such a bad idea. And have Deontay Wilder against Dillian White on that undercard, or do 2 separate different shows, depending on when the WBC want their mandatory fulfilled by. As it took them 3 years to get one out of the way, I'm sure they want to try and make up for a little bit of lost time and cram in a couple of mandatories. So, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Because otherwise, what we could end up having is an undisputed fight next, and immediately straight after, the winner between Joshua and Deontay Wilder could end up having a belt or 2 stripped. Right? Because they can't do all the mandatories at the same time, which is one of the problems about being undisputed. It's good to say, yes, I did it, I'm officially undisputed, but I'm not going to get to defend all the belts because now I'm being stripped of a couple. So, anyway, that's just my thoughts. I was just interested in yours. Again, it is a personal thing, of course it is, with Dillian White. Again, he does have to get past Lucas Brown, of course. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like it because they're going to expect Joshua to go bouncing from one title to the next in quick succession, just because Deontay Wilder is ready now, just because his new fans who haven't been following him his entire career, they're literally new fans, are trying to push for Deontay Wilder to get that massive payday that he so desperately wants against Anthony Joshua. But you know what, all that aside, be a great fight if they do it next. Who knows, for all we know, it could already be signed and they're just playing games. They're not going to tell us, are they? Because if Joshua loses to Parker, they're going to say, well, why was you... Well, maybe he lost because he was thinking about Deontay Wilder, you're an idiot. You know, it's that kind of thing. And again, people saying that Joshua is afraid of Deontay Wilder. Don't forget, Deontay Wilder is only doing the commentary right at ringside for Sky Sport and doing the punditry work because Anthony Joshua either requested it or gave permission for this to happen. So if Joshua was scared, he probably wouldn't want him anywhere near him, right? Because it would distract him. Do you think Sky, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn want Anthony Joshua distracted? Do you think they want him to lose against Parker? No, of course not. They want that undisputed fight. They've been saying it for a long, long time. They did say before the end of 2018, which is what I was going to hold them to. But of course now they're saying February. But either way, first things first, Dillian Whyte's got to get past Lucas Brown. And Anthony Joshua's got to get past Joseph Parker. Hopefully, touch wood, all that kind of stuff. Both those things happen. And then we'll get to see exactly where the dust settles. And then we can start pushing for Eddie Hearn to get in the ear of Suleiman and saying, make Deontay Wilder fight Dillian Whyte next so we can have an all-British undisputed fight. I like the sound of that. You let me know yours. And obviously, if a lot of people are really not interested, then of course I won't bother. I'm not going to go by thumbs down. I'm just going to go by comments. If I get a lot of comments saying, yeah, I like that idea, let's push for Deontay Wilder and Dillian Whyte next. And then hopefully Dillian Whyte was to win for undisputed, but even if he doesn't, it's still going to be a huge fight anyway between Wilder and Joshua, right? So anyway, drop your thoughts below, click that thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.